The rain had settled over the Conwy Valley in a fine silver mist when Nia Morgan unlocked the heavy oak door to Castell Glass. At 8:30 every morning, she arrived as the castle's senior tour guide, part historian, part storyteller, part peacekeeper, among the costumed volunteers who treated the 15th-century fortress like their personal stage. The castle's honey-coloured sandstone walls usually held the chill of the river breeze, but that September morning they felt uncommonly warm, as if the building itself had woken early in anticipation. In 3 days, Castell Glass would host its annual Feast of Owain, a ticket-only medieval banquet where visitors donned velvet gowns, sampled boar pies and barley bread, and applauded swordplay beneath flaming torches. It was the castle's biggest event, the financial lifeline that paid for leaky roofs and conservation glue. Nia was both excited and anxious. In addition to managing tours, she had been drafted to marshal the reenactors. She marched through the great hall rehearsing her mental checklist, candles, trenchers, minstrel timetable, when something unusual snagged her peripheral vision. Along the south wall hung a series of woolen tapestries, locally famed for depicting the siege of 1401 in startling detail. Nia knew every panel by heart, yet a glimmer of crimson in the third panel seemed new. She stepped closer. The tiny splash of colour did not belong to a soldier's plume or banner. It was a single embroidered letter, the N in Anno, but the shade was fractionally brighter than the rest of the garnet thread, as though someone had replaced just that stitch. She knelt, tracing other letters in the row. 6 feet farther along appeared an I in the same vivid hue, and beyond it an G, then an H, N-I-G-H. Nia frowned, her pulse skittering. Surely it was coincidence. Yet the next panel offered a scarlet T knight. She straightened, heart thumping, and scanned the hall. No one. Only the clacking ravens outside. Across 3 tapestries, someone had replaced individual letters to form the word knight. Had a bored volunteer done it? Impossible. The panels were stored behind locked glass after closing. Nia's keys were one of only 4 sets. She made a note in her pocket diary and finished her rounds. But curiosity gnawed at her. At noon, between tours, she returned with a torch and a magnifying glass. Beginning at the first panel, she catalogued the altered letters. When she was done, 38 tiny anomalies produced a sentence in mangled Latin. Noctis umbra latet ad venenum afflat. The shadow of night hides, yet poison exhales. A chill brushed her neck. Poison. The phrase sounded lifted from a chronicle of court intrigues. Yet the stitches were fresh, no more than a week old. That afternoon, Nia reported the vandalism to Gwenllian Hughes, the castle's meticulous curator. Gwenllian's silver bun tightened with every word, but she dismissed the message as a prank by one of the younger reenactors desperate for drama. She promised to investigate after the feast. There was no budget to call textile conservators right then. Nia left the office unsatisfied, the warning repeating in her mind. Night hides, poison exhales. 2 evenings later, dress rehearsals for the banquet began. The reenactors gathered in the kitchen, donning linen smocks while the chef, Caris Davies, tested flagons of spiced mead. Rhys Powell, the charismatic leader of the sword troupe, strutted about in chainmail, flirting with anyone who'd listen. Rumour said Rhys hoped to pitch a TV pilot about Castell Glass, angering some volunteers who feared commercialisation. As Nia supervised candle placement, Bryn Edwards, the castle's reserved archivist, approached carrying a dusty folio. "Found something you might like," he murmured. Inside lay charcoal sketches of the same siege tapestries, dated 1884. Bryn tapped the margins where a scholar had penciled notes. Hidden acrostics denote warnings of poison. Evidently, the original artist stitched secret messages for a lord suspicious of an assassin. But medieval caretakers had removed most red letters long ago. Bryn's brow creased. Either our joker studied this folio, or they've rediscovered the code. Nia exhaled. Which suggests they want us to notice. Why now, before the feast? That question lingered as the final banquet preparations unfolded. On the event night, the castle glittered with lanterns, and guests arrived cloaked in wool against the autumn wind. Nia guided them through antechambers where minstrels played lutes, then ushered everyone into the great hall, heavy with rosemary and roasting venison. She stationed herself by the dais to watch for mischief, and for crimson stitches she might have overlooked. The hall brimmed with laughter, the gentle sort that belonged to comfortable middle-age hobbyists. Yet Nia's jaw remained tight. Gwenllian circulated with curatorial serenity. Bryn hovered near the musicians, eyes scanning scrolls of sheet music. Caris supervised platters of saffron rice, her cheeks smudged with flour, and Rhys paraded along benches offering to refill goblets. The first course passed without incident. During the second, a rabbit and leek terrine, Nia's gaze drifted to the tapestries, glowing under sconce light. Were fresh messages hiding in plain sight? She barely noticed Rhys step onto the small platform reserved for toasts. He clanged a pewter jug. "Lords and ladies, a word!" The crowd hushed good-naturedly. Rhys raised his goblet. "To legends reborn!" He drank, theatrically deep. Then he coughed. At first playfully, then racking, violent. A hush sliced through the hall. Rhys's face blanched. He gripped the edge of the platform, swayed and crumpled. Gasps spiraled. Someone shrieked. Nia dashed forward, dropping to her knees. Rhys's eyes stared glassily. A thin foam flecked his lips. Gwenllian pushed through with a first aid kit, but a quick pulse check told them what they already feared. Rhys Powell was dead. Within minutes, staff evacuated guests to the courtyard. Paramedics arrived, followed by North Wales Police. Inspector Dafydd Evans interviewed shaken witnesses near the drawbridge while his team sealed the hall. Nia, trembling, recounted Rhys's sudden collapse. She mentioned the coded tapestries. The inspector lifted an eyebrow but jotted it down. At midnight, after statements were taken, Nia trudged across the courtyard toward the staff cottage. Rain snaked down her cloak, but she paused outside the shuttered hall. From the courtyard light, the tapestries appeared as sombre sentinels. Nia whispered to them, "Someone warned us, and we missed it." Sleep eluded her. At 4 a.m, she returned, armed with a torch and Bryn's folio, slipping past police tape. She still had her key. Inside, Rhys's overturned goblet lay where it had been photographed. Nia crouched and sniffed. Herbs, mead, and something acrid, bittersweet, like crushed green stalks. Henbane, she thought. She'd written a brochure on medieval poisons last spring. Henbane had been called herba quieta, the quieting herb, once depicted in apothecary manuals the castle displayed. If henbane was steeped in warm mead, its tropane alkaloids could kill within minutes. Nia's torchlight skimmed the tapestries. Had the vandal left another sentence during the feast's bustle? In the second panel she spotted it. 3 crimson letters she was certain hadn't been there during rehearsals, Q-U-I. Next panel offered E-T-A, quieta. The quieting herb. A message sewn in real time while guests dined. Nia photographed the letters and retreated before dawn. At 9, Inspector Evans summoned staff for updates in the solar. Forensics found henbane alkaloids in Reese's goblet and jug, but nowhere else. Evans believed the poison had been added tableside. Everyone at Reese's end of the hall was now a suspect. When it was her turn, Nia presented her discovery. Evans, skeptical yet intrigued, ordered protective custody for the tapestries and allowed Nia to remain as historical consultant. She could almost hear Gwenllian grinding her teeth at the title. Interviews revealed a tapestry needle and scarlet silk in the pocket of one volunteer, Anwen Price. But Anwen burst into tears, insisting she'd only borrowed them from the conservation kit to fix a costume hem. She pointed out that anyone could have accessed her satchel backstage. The deeper Evans probed, the clearer it became that Reese had not been universally adored. Gwenllian resented his push for a commercial TV contract. Bryn feared archival material would be sensationalized. Caris had quarrelled with him about unrealistic demands for more authentic mead. Yet motives were circumstantial. Evidence was thin. That afternoon, Nia returned to the now forbidden Great Hall under escort. As she passed the tapestries, a hunch fluttered. The old acrostic about shadow and poison might form a larger puzzle when combined with last night's quieta. She requested an hour to study the panels. Evans granted 30 minutes. Letter by letter, she transcribed every crimson stitch. Some formed words, others floated, orphaned. Then she recalled something Bryn once told her about medieval cipher poems that used night pieces on a chessboard grid to dictate reading order. The siege tapestries showed siege towers and trebuchets arranged exactly like a famous chess problem of the era. Nia hurried to Bryn's office. He blinked behind reading glasses when she breathlessly explained her theory. Together, they overlaid a knight's tour pattern on a photocopy of the panels. Following the L-shaped jumps uncovered a new phrase. Secreto cunabulo in catino. Roughly, the secret lies in the bowl. The bowl, Bryn repeated. Reese's soup bowl, Nia guessed. But forensics had already removed tableware. Then she remembered the kitchens, wooden mixing bowls stacked on high shelves. They crossed the courtyard to the kitchens, now sealed. Inspector Evans met them en route, grim but resigned to Nia's intuition. Inside, steam still scented the air from vat washings. Caris stood with arms folded, observing officers' inventory dried herbs. Nia scanned the racks. A huge ashwood bowl, dark with age, sat above the larder door, odd place for something so large. Evans's deputy fetched steps and carefully lowered it. Inside lay a small parchment packet tied with red silk. Evans unwrapped it. Henbane seeds and a folded note. The shadow of night hides, but greed exposes itself. Who would poison a tale for the sake of fame? Gwenllian burst through the door, as if pulled by fate. When she saw the seeds, her face drained. Evans stiffened. Miss Hughes, where were you when Reese was served? Supervising the minstrels, she said, though her voice quavered. Nia spoke gently. The letters you supervised were tampered with right under your nose twice, Gwen. Either you were oblivious, or you wanted us to find them. Bryn added, You studied these tapestries for 20 years. Only you could replicate medieval stitching without leaving clumsy knots. Gwenllian's shoulders sagged like a sail in doldrums. Tears glittered. I wasn't trying to kill him, she whispered. I wanted to scare him, to stop the bloody television deal. He wanted to move the tapestries to a London studio for filming. Our entire collection would have been uprooted, trivialized. The board was listening to him. She sniffed. So I thought. A small illness. A purgative dose. Nothing lethal. Evans's eyebrow shot up. Yet he died. I miscalculated, she choked. The seeds were stronger than records suggested. Nia's stomach hollowed with sadness. But why the messages? They incriminated you. I couldn't let an innocent be blamed, Gwenllian said. If Rhys recovered, the code would steer suspicion toward me, the only person who might know it, but he wasn't meant to die. She cupped her face. Evans took her into custody, cautioning her rights. As Gwenllian passed Nia, she said, I thought you'd solve it sooner. Nia wanted to say she was sorry, that passion for history should not cost a life, but words failed. A week later, the castle reopened to subdued tours. The board installed new security for the tapestries and suspended the feast indefinitely. Visitors clustered around Nia, aware a real-life mystery had unfolded where they now stood, though few knew details. Bryn and Caris greeted her with quiet camaraderie. The staff, bonded by tragedy, moved carefully, speaking in hushed tones out of respect. One crisp morning, Nia lingered after her last tour. Sunlight filtered through arrow slits, sprinkling dust motes across the siege panels. She traced a thread that once flashed crimson, but had been restored to its original shade by experts. Somehow the fabric felt more alive than ever, humming with stories of whispered plots, moral choices, and frail humanity. The castle had always been her favourite character, and now it had told another tale, one stitched not only in wool, but in the complicated hearts of those sworn to protect it. As she locked the great hall for the night, Nia glanced back at the tapestries. She wondered what other secrets slept between their strands, waiting for another curious eye. Then she smiled at a revelation both mournful and comforting. History never ended. It merely looped its threads through new hands, inviting each generation to read the pattern afresh.